like to talk to you now about the work of Christian Watch, but before I do, I'd like to make a few comments, especially in view of what our brother's spoken about when he said that we to discern the times. To discern the times, and part of discerning the times, I believe, is the work of Christian Watch. And today, we're probably living in what the Chinese will perhaps call interesting times. They're certainly tumultuous times, and they're times which I believe God would have us take special note of. And it's occurred to me that indeed it is the time when we should point out to the world what God is doing in the world and what He's saying to us. And I know it's not a popular thing in this day and age in the churches to speak of temporal judgment, and many are timid about speaking of temporal judgment, but God is a God of temporal judgment. He's a God that would cry an alarm to us in mercy to awaken us out of our sleep and out of our lethargy, and indeed to shout out to mankind that their ways are ways which He does not approve of. And the more sin abounds in the world, the more I believe God sends these alarm calls to us. And it's been of a special note, not that I have a special relationship with God so that I know His mind, because we started with a verse which said, His paths are in the great waters and His footsteps are not known. But there are certain things which we can know, and certainly the Puritans were not afraid to speak of God's temporal judgments when they saw them. And when the plague came, followed by the Great Fire of London, they remarked on these two temporal judgments as being of special note to the people. And many of people nowadays perhaps are not aware of these double temporal judgments which God has sent to us in the last 2 decades. In 1987, we had the greatest storm that this country has ever known. On the Friday and on the Monday, the greatest fall on the stock market that this country has ever known. These were two remarkable events at the same time, and I believe we're to observe these things, and I believe God sent them to awaken us, because we're very slow to think that this is a message or an alarm call from God. And all right, a great fall on the stock market may have been one of those things, but to be followed by the greatest storm, perhaps that would awaken us. And then there was another, what I consider to be, double alarm call. We had Princess Diana who died, and it tells us in Job that the princes are taken away at midnight, that meant that people should fear, and she was taken away at midnight. But a few days later, we had the death of Mother Teresa. And I believe that these two events were another alarm call from God to remind us of our mortality and to remind the world of its state. And then, only yesterday was it, we had a very rare event. We had an asteroid passing within 17,000 miles of the Earth, and they said this is probably a 1 in a million event, or a very rare event. But on the same day, virtually at the same time, we had a meteor which was totally disconnected from the asteroid, which fell upon Russia and injured 1,000 people. Again, we're told this was a 1 in a million event. So we have two 1 in a million events occurring on the same day at the same time. This is God's alarm call to the church and to the world. This is God calling to us, saying, look, think. This is trying to arrest the attention of the church and of the people. Now, this is not a popular message today, and you may disagree with me, but I believe that in times past we can read it in the Scriptures. These alarm calls from God, and they're sent as double events so that we might remark on these things and we might point people to them, and we might show what God is doing in the world. We're to observe the providences of God. And indeed, there is at the moment upon the church, and I believe the world, a worse judgment coming, and that is the spirit of deep sleep. In Isaiah 29, the God has poured upon you the spirit of deep sleep. And so the book is given to the learned, and he says, read it, and he says, I cannot. And Another one says, I cannot because I'm not learned. The spirit of deep sleep, and that is slowly coming upon the church and the world today. And I believe part of the work of Christian Watch is to awaken people to the times in which they live. And the fact, as our brother said, the time is short. We're to discern the times, and our salvation is nearer than when we first believed. Well, that's part of what I believe Christian Watch people should be doing today, but I'll just give you an account of actually what the work is happening locally. We had an open-air meeting today down in Worthing, in the town, and the last open-air we had in Worthing was very well supported by people coming to listen, and we had a group of people in front of us. There were perhaps 15, 20 people that stood and listened to us in the drizzling rain, and some of them stood there for 3/4 of an hour to listen to the open-air message. Well, today was virtually the opposite. Today we were cursed at and swore at and blasphemed. People stood up, and some of them stood in front of me face to face, and some stood there and some stood here, and another one sort of tried to intimidate me. So a completely different situation today. And there we are. But we had a good time. People came up and took literature. And our brother Stephen Black and David Hayes were there manning the book table, and they had 1 or 2 conversations with people. And also another 2 members came to see us and visit us. Thank you very much. But it would be good at our open air meetings if as many people as possible could join with us in the open air, because the number is everything. And we're able to speak to more people. We're able to present a united show rather than be 2 or 3 oddballs still speaking in the open air. So that's the local work. Nationally, we're trying to open up, obviously, contact groups all the time. And we've just come back from Liverpool, spent 5 days with my wife in Liverpool, and we visited 4 churches up there in 3 days, and we spoke to them about the work of Christian Watch. I can say that 2 of them we were very well received. Elim Pentecostal Church, strangely enough, was the first one we went to, and we were very well received there. People were very enthusiastic. I stood up at the front and I said, well, your form of worship isn't exactly what I'm used to. And they said, we're going to pray for you, brother, they shouted out. So, but they were very, very happy with us. And they gave us a good contribution towards the work. And again, we went to a Free Presbyterian Church, Calvin Street, and again we had a good turnout and well received. The last 2 churches, not so happy. In fact, after I'd spoken, the deacon didn't want to speak to me. He ignored me and turned his back on me. So we weren't very well received at the last one. It was a new evangelical type church, and he informed me how many guitar strings he'd broken and how many piano keys the pianist had broken, and he picked a broken one up to show me. But that was their style of worship. But yes, we've got a contact group now which is going to be established there. And there's a young man up there, Andy Jones, and he's starting a group with several others shortly, within the next month, and we're going to start the meetings up there just as we're having here, and getting a group established up there. On the website, I don't know if many of you follow the website, which our brother Ian maintains on a daily basis, but the website is expanding and growing, and we hope to have podcasts and videos very shortly. In fact, this video here now, God willing, will be up and running on that website very shortly. And with David Hayes and Stephen, we're going to also work out a podcast scenario where there's a question and answer situation. And if ever any of you would like to be involved in that, then please let us know. In terms of the work in Nigeria, that's progressing quite well. We're also endeavouring to break out into other areas, and that's important, of course. I don't know if there's anybody here tonight who isn't a member of Christian Watch, but there is some literature and membership forms on the table, and we would like you to join with us if you would. membership is £10 a year, and for that you get 10 newsletters. And in terms of other meetings, we're at the moment hoping to have a Reformation anniversary, which is in remembrance of the Reformation of 1517. I know it's a long way away, 2017, but we're working towards quite a large celebration, is that the word, of this Reformation event 500 years ago. And that's what we're working on at the moment. And hopefully we will be able to tell you more about that soon. We haven't got many members here tonight, but I thank you for the ones that have come to join us. It's really nice to see you all here, and it was a good word from Patrick, and it was a very encouraging word. What time is it? Because we are to discern the times, and we are to take note of these things. Those of you who want to talk to me more about the work or would like to become more involved, perhaps you'd either see Stephen or see me afterwards. Thank you.